Hello and welcome to my presentation, How to Write an Engineering Scope. I'm an undergraduate asset engineer for Aurizon. This is for the subject ENEP 12008, Engineering Supervisor Development. The history of Aurizon. Now, Aurizon is a national freight company that has the majority of its business within the state of Queensland. Its major source of revenue is the Central Queensland Coal Network, or CQCN. Within the CQCN, they manage a railway network in its entirety. Design, construct, maintain, and operate. This rail network is used by rail operators such as Pacific National, BMA, and Aurizon in order to transport coal to ports located at Bowen, Gladstone, and Mackay. Aurizon move 500 plus million gross tonnes per year of freight which is shipped around the globe. Now, Aurizon, formerly QR National, started as the public arm of Queensland Rail, which serviced mines within the CQCN and was publicly listed on the Australian Stock Exchange in 2010. They also have an intermodal component that travels all around Australia, which is essentially trucking. Although a relatively new company, starting from Queensland Rail though, Aurizon has a history of over 150 years of railway experience. So this is the Central Queensland Coal Network. There is 2,700 kilometres of track, over 25 mine service, and stretches from Rockhampton to Bowen, and as far inland as Moranbah. These are other areas of the business. The majority of the revenue for Aurizon does come from the CQCN, but as you can see from this map, there also is intermodal, bulk freight, iron ore, and coal. And although coal has the lion's share, there is still a significant presence in Western Australia doing iron ore. So my experience. So I've been an undergraduate asset engineer for level crossing since June 2015. During my time at Aurizon as an undergraduate asset engineer, I've been a part of Network Assets, who are the owner of the network or the client. We are in charge of telling the company how and when something is going to be built, how much it will cost, where the people who write the standards in which it will be built to, and to approve drawings for it to be constructed. I've personally been responsible for scoping the next 2 years worth of scope for level crossings, which will be worth in excess of over $10 million, and I've communicated these scopes with project managers and internal parties and have had my scopes constructed. So preparing a scope, what are we going to learn today? Now, we're going to learn why we need to properly scope, how to scope an engineering project, a good format for a scope, and what should be included, and some examples of what can be written. So why is writing a scope important? Well, put simply, you won't get what you don't ask for. If you went to Subway thinking you were going to get a meatball sub, only asked for a sandwich and got a chicken sub, you'd be mad, but it would be your own fault. If your scope isn't well written enough, you may not get the outcome that you envisioned. Now, a scope can be a legally binding document. For this reason, a poorly written scope can cost a company large amounts of money in variations. Now, resources that can't be managed efficiently by either parties, if you misscope, say an item, and leave it out, you may be getting a product that doesn't meet your needs or requirements. And you will need to frequently prepare these as an engineer, because it is a large part of engineering. So an engineering scope, what is it? It's the why, the how, the what, when, and how much of a project from the client's perspective. It should contain the following: the background information, objective, deliverables, schedule, budget, exclusions, and any other additional information that is required. It should always be as explicit as possible. Now, this is one way to write a scope. There are many different ways to write a scope, which may include different things, but this is a good format to start out with if you've not done scoping before, and we'll show you how to do a nice simple scope. So what do you do before scoping begins? You investigate what you need to scope. This is the site investigation. For drainage, for instance, this is what I would use as a tool on site to do a quick, simple sketch of what needs to happen. As you can see, it's got all the pertinent information, where it is, what we need to do, the existing drainage. So there you can see I've written all the attributes of the current drainage as it stands, and I've put in a drainage scope, what could be the proposed scope from the initial on-site investigation. So once I've done my initial site inspection, I've ascertained that a culvert needs replacing and resizing near Shillings Lane level crossing. Now, before we get into telling them what we need, we're going to tell them why it's happened. So, the background information. This is the pertinent information as to why the project needs to be undertaken. This could include location, type of problem, why the problem has arisen, stuff like that. So the background information, this is what I've written. After investigation of Shillings Lane level crossing at 31.636 on the Mara short line, it has been found that the culvert and the surrounding drainage on the right-hand side of the rail on the road approach isn't sufficient for the flow rates experienced. This is evidenced by localized scouring and ponding water near the track. The culvert is 300 millimeters in diameter, corrugated steel pipe, and has damaged ends and deformed ends. So an objective. An objective is what you are trying to achieve from the project. The objective could be to have a working design, a finished product. This is a high-level goal of the project. So for my culvert replacement and resizing, the objective is to have a drainage system in place that is adequate enough to move water away from the track structure so as to minimize the saturation and scouring around the level crossing and surrounds during rain events. Deliverables. Now this is what is expected from the project. It could be in the form of a schedule of works, design, reports, construction, anything that is going to be expected from the project. This may include all relevant standards that the project is delivered to, or you might put that in your inclusions later on down the track. So what I've written here, what I want is a full hydrological study of the immediate surround and catchments that impact on the level crossing no more than 100 meters either side of the crossing. This will be in the form of a technical report. A recommendation of the box concrete culvert sizes that would suit, a suitable drainage plan for the site that will be signed off by an RPQ engineer. Notice that I've been very explicit about the hydrological study. This is because a hydrological study could be square kilometers around the level crossing, which would be very costly and time consuming, and it's not something that we really want, so we just want to keep it immediate. The schedule. So this is a pretty simple one. This is the time frame that the project must be delivered in. It will have to be agreed upon by all parties, and there may be penalties for running over time. It will also have milestones that will need to be met. These can be very, very complex if the job is very complex. Say if you're delivering a road, you'd have hundreds of different milestones. For ours, it's nice and simple. The hydrological study is to be 6 weeks from the acceptance of the project. Full drainage design be given in 12 weeks from the acceptance of the project, and update meetings are be held every 3 weeks with full project reporting to be complete. Now, you could be more explicit here in how you want the progress reporting to be said, but for the sake of brevity, we've left it out. So next we have the budget. So this is the amount of money that you'll be given for the project. Again, the need to be explicit is paramount. If you ask for items for the project that is outside the scope, you'll be liable for variations to the contract, and this can be very costly. This is where your background information and your deliverables are so important. So for this, we're saying $20,000 exclusive of GST as soon as they have finished the works. Now, notice that I put exclusive of GST. This is, again, for the sake of being explicit. If we were to leave that part out, they could say it would be implicit, and you might not get as much work for your money. So inclusion. So this highlights the important parts of a scope, or parts that can't be included in the deliverables for the sake of brevity. So for the report and design, we've said all to be designed to the Queensland Uniform Drainage Manual. Concrete box culvert is to be designed to AS 3600, which is the concrete standard, and all calculations that are performed by software will need to be proven by a sample of hand calculations, which is pretty standard practice. So exclusions, this is items you don't want to be included in the project or shouldn't be included. This is very good at limiting the project if the scope is too ambiguous. So the frequency of inundation is 10 years. So the larger the frequency on inundation, the bigger the culverts, the larger the study is going to be. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep it local. So this is what we end up with. Instead of saying, I need a new culvert, because that one's buggered, we've written a 2-page succinct scope of exactly what we want, and we will get exactly what we wanted. So to recap, remember, you got to have your background information, the why, your objective, the what, the deliverables, that's your how, your schedule, when, the budget, how much, inclusions and exclusions, and I guarantee you'll get a good job. So resources for this, the Australian standards are very good. Good starting off point if you don't have a clear starting off point. Local standards, local bodies such as councils will have approved scoping documentation. The internet, actually a fantastic place, and project management courses. So thanks very much for watching my presentation. I hope it gave you some insight into the world of scoping, and hopefully you'll be able to make your own scopes. Thanks for watching.